day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Electronic Duty of Care November conference call hosted by Victoria Vaughan-Williams. My name is Gemma and I'm your event manager. During the presentation, your lines will remain on listen only. If you require assistance at any time, please key *0 on your telephone and a coordinator will be happy to assist you. I would like to advise all parties this conference is being recorded for replay purposes, and now I'd like to hand over to Victoria. Please go ahead.
Thanks very much, Gemma. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this webinar from the edoc program. As Gemma said, my name is Victoria Vaughan-Williams, and I am the Partnerships Manager with the edoc team at the Environment Agency. I'm going to be taking you through the first part of the webinar and introduce you to edoc, telling you what it's all about, the benefits of using the system, and then I'll show you some of the key features on our test system. I'm going to hand then to our next presenter, who is Brian Marshall. Brian is the Environment and Compliance Manager at Reconomy, which is the UK's largest waste broker and a member of the edoc board. Because we're doing some demonstrations, we won't probably have time for sort of formal question and answers, but you can certainly send us questions afterwards by email. We'll send out a reminder anyway asking for feedback and if you have any questions. But you can ask questions through the sort of Q&A button at the top of your screen in text format, and if we get time to answer them, we will do so. If not, we'll collect those up and endeavour to answer those as well. Just a sort of few housekeeping issues. Hopefully you can all hear and see the visual element. If you do have any problems during the webinar, then if you just press *0, the event operator will be happy to help. We will be looking at the test system, so after I've done a bit of presentation, then we'll look into the test system itself. So hopefully you'll be able to sort of, follow that visually. If it is a little bit jerky, it's probably down to what device you're viewing it on and maybe the streaming capacity of your broadband connection. But hopefully you'll be able to see what we're actually showing you. The webinar as well is being recorded, and we will be able to make that available on request afterwards. So let's get started, and as I said, what I'm going to do is introduce you to edoc itself. This is the new web-based electronic duty of care system, which the Environment Agency and its partners launched at the end of January this year. We're going to talk a bit about the background, about the need for such a system, details about the project, about what edoc is and who it's for, the benefits of using it, a little bit about how it was developed, and then finally we'll introduce you to some of the key features and how it works. So let's just look at some of the background things about duty of care. Organisations, both commercial and public in the UK, are obliged to deal responsibly with any waste that they produce and ensure that they store, transport and dispose of that without harming the environment. This is part of what the UK calls its duty of care compliance system and requires that for all non-hazardous waste, written information is completed when a business transfers their waste to another party. For example, this can be in electronic form, but more usually it's in the form of a waste transfer note, which is currently mostly in paper form. Businesses have to store these records for at least 2 years, and it's estimated that something in the region of 23 million paper waste transfer notes are produced every year in the UK. Obviously, that causes them issues with storage, administration, and then actually retrieving the data on that information. Current paper-based waste transfer notes also leave a lot of room for error, I think. The waste transfer notes are often incomplete, and they can contain incorrect information. So I think you'll agree maybe the time is right to actually have an electronic duty of care system, or edoc as we're going to be calling it in the short term. This is really a national electronic system where businesses can create, share, sign and store those waste transfer notes all online. It will transform the current static paper-based system into an up-to-date and live, continually changing way of doing things. It's free and it's relevant to all businesses that produce non-hazardous waste. So whether that be a supermarket chain, national construction company or an SME, through to companies that actually manage that waste, such as waste operators, waste brokers and waste dealers. Moving to edoc isn't mandatory, but we hope that it provides the opportunity for producers particularly and operators to completely change a sort of outmoded static way of doing things and so bring a lot of benefits. It will be a modern approach, so we'll get away from the cumbersome paper-based systems and bring everything online. So first and foremost, it's going to help users in terms of time, so filing, searching, and actually retrieving that information. It should also, moving online means that they won't have to store that paper, so they'll no longer have to have storage costs or retrieval costs, so hopefully it will impact on their bottom line. It will also cut down on paper, because we won't be using all that paper, just doing everything online itself. So by using edoc to comply and manage their waste, it will give businesses the tools to interrogate their own waste data and more easily identify opportunities to improve efficiency and reduce waste, and therefore help transition their activities away from that traditional linear waste management approach to one which is much more circular. So therefore, they can improve and track and understand their waste and minimise their risk of non-compliance. Businesses in the UK are subject to spot checks on duty of care, so edoc will also help regulators but also external, internal auditors to verify questionable activities more easily. I've already said that the paper waste transfer notes are often incomplete, so edoc will help ensure accuracy and produce high-quality data. This is by its user-friendly design because it has drop-down menus which will help prevent errors. It also has some other features like auto-completes and prompts and prediction tools. So all of that contained within the system which will help improve that quality of information. That means that edoc is going to be invaluable for understanding and planning for waste at a local and national level in the future in the UK. So how can you actually get access to the system? With our partners at the beginning of the sort of development of edoc, they wanted a range of attributes for the system. In particular, they wanted it to be flexible, one which was scalable, but also ensured data security for the user. This flexibility applies to actually how you access the system. So there are two ways that data can be input into edoc. First of all, we have what is called the application programming interface on this left-hand side here. This is a software tool, essentially, and it's for big business users in particular who can interact with edoc so that there can be direct communication between their existing computer systems, which they might use for holding information about waste transfer and edoc. API offers both a SOAP and REST technology, and that means you'll be able to transfer significant amounts of data quickly and easily, avoiding the need for double entry by the user. We've then also got what is called a sort of for smaller businesses, a web portal. And this means information is put in directly through the web. This offers some flexibility as well by the fact that we have a sort of a file which can describe several waste transfers, and you can upload this via the web portal in a single action. Again, just improving the handling of medium quantities of data and is an alternative to the API. So what can actually edoc do? Well, some of its features and the main reason for it being developed is that you can create your waste transfer notes and share those with the parties online. You can review and edit those, sign them, and then obviously store them for the required time all online. You can choose to receive automatic emails which tell you when there's an action and when there's something to sign or when something is changed on a waste transfer note. You can see a log of actions, so when it's been performed and by who. It's very useful for auditing purposes. You can create a season ticket which has the option to include multiple waste types and containers and also collection frequencies. Or you can choose just a single waste transfer note. You can retrieve that information very quickly and easily and download that in business reports, which you can then use to help your business and make business decisions. This is just a bit of an example or a screenshot from the system itself. We'll be going into the test system, so we will see this later on. But this is just an example of the template of the waste transfer node. Here you can see that there's the option to choose a single transfer or the season ticket. And then this first section is information about the waste, a description, and then here is the EWC code. All information that should be familiar to you in terms of actually what you currently do now on a paper form. You'll see this is an example of a drop-down menu, so again, it's just trying to make it easier and helpful to the user when actually completing that information. What we've got next is the EWC code, often an area which is a problem on waste transfer notes, and edoc aims to be helpful to you. So if you know what the code is, you can go through the various drop-down menus and chapters to actually get to the code. But if you don't know what it is and you just know that you've got waste, you've got plastic, for example, that you're getting rid of, if you actually start typing plastic, it will actually bring back those relevant codes for plastic so that you can then choose the right one. Also, if you know part of the code, you can start typing it, and also, again, edoc will predict it. So again, trying to actually bring that consistency and high-quality information to the system. These are just some of the useful guidance, which is actually in the system itself. These are what we call tooltips, and if you hover over the little eyes, which are in the system, which you'll see in the test system later on, this actually just gives you a little bit of explanation about what is required for that particular field. So it'll tell you what's going on. So a little bit of guidance within the system itself. This is just a greater view of it so that you can actually see. And what we're doing here is actually trying to discover other business users of edoc itself. Again, it's on a prediction basis, so if you actually just start typing, edoc will pull back information about other registered businesses who may be on the system and who are maybe involved in your waste transfer. The other element of the system that I actually talked about was the ability that edoc allows you to create business reports about your waste. This diagram shows you the design of how reports can be run within the system itself and the different levels of report you can run and the different level of information that allows access to. So on the left-hand side here, first of all, we have the business report, and this will help a business understand the waste transfers that they've been involved in. So, for example, it's going to be answering questions like, how much waste do I produce or handle each year? What type of waste code do I produce most of? So the level of information returned is controlled by the level of detail you select, and it's quite a powerful search engine to allow you to do what you need to. Then we've got something called the edoc All Waste Report. This provides an overview of all waste transfers from businesses recorded in edoc. But this data, as you can see, is aggregated and anonymized, which means that there are sample size restrictions in place. So if the sample size is too narrow, that query will be blocked. This means that information is only reported where there is a sufficient number of waste transfers so that details of individual businesses can't be inferred. So you won't be getting commercially confidential information. We also have what are called waste tonnage reports. And this is just, again, is an optional feature within edoc, but some UK businesses have to submit quarterly returns to their regulatory body. So edoc can help you prepare those and be, again, trying to be useful to you. Lastly, we have what is called the data export, and this is only available to a few trusted parties, particularly government like DEFRA and other bodies who work for them like RAP. So the information, again, is raw data from the waste transfer note, but again, is anonymized for the purposes of confidentiality. So that's a little bit about the reporting system. What we've got now is really, I just wanted to sort of, just explain that obviously edoc is live. This is a view of our website, and this is where you'd be able to access the test system from the help and support menu. We'll be looking at that in a little while, and just to say that we don't have a big manual. We have sort of designed it to be simple and intuitive to use with drop-down menus to help that consistency, and also the inbuilt tooltips. We've also got a lot more information on this website here, which is edoconline.co.uk, where you'll be able to find videos about how to use certain key features like registration and adding sites, but also access to the test system, which is an exact replica of the live system, an implementation plan, and frequently asked questions, all within this help and support menu. Let's move on to talk about the first thing that some of the key features and some of the key things that you'll be wanting to do. First of all, we're going to talk about registration, because that is one of the key things that you will need to do to actually start using edoc itself. And then we'll move on to the test system, and we'll look at adding users and sites, and then looking at the waste transfer nodes, which is the real heart of the system itself. So, as I said, we have developed the system to be intuitive to use, and registering is no exception. So once you're ready, you will need to enter a few bits of key information. can add more information, and the more you add, the more helpful edoc will then be able to be later to you when you're creating your waste transfer notes and pull in information. But you can always go back and change that once you've registered, and I'll show you where you can do that within the test system. When you're ready to register, you'll follow the link from edoconline.co.uk and you'll come to this page. This is sort of, just to show you and get a look and feel for the system itself. We have these useful sort of blue summary sections which actually sort of tell you about the section, give you useful information about what you're required to do in this particular activity. We've also got access to the frequently asked questions here, and these are again segmented by what type of activity you're trying to do, so the system will take you directly to the section that you're in. We also have the videos, as I mentioned. There is one on registration. I'm not going to show it here because live streaming is a little bit problematic, but I would encourage you to go and have a look at that, as it's quite a nice summary and will just give you a visual walkthrough of how to register. Registration is actually very quick and simple, and when you actually do register, there is no right or wrong way to do it, I suppose. But before you get started, it's probably worth just having a little bit of a think about your business and how you operate now and how you want that to be structured on edoc. We've designed it to be easy to actually record your details on the waste transfer note, but also to enable you to interrogate your records and get back reports which can be of value and then support your business. So how you register is entirely up to you, and there are a number of ways that you might want to do that. For example, you might want to register at an organisational level. That means you might have other businesses or divisions which then would sit underneath that in the hierarchy. You might actually want to register each business division separately, or you could actually register each individual site separately if you so wish. How you register is, as I said, something you'll probably want to think about, particularly in terms of what data you can actually retrieve from the system. And you may want to align it, as I said, to how your business is structured, be it by division or specifically as an organisational as a whole. To help you decide which might be right for you, there's probably a number of things that you would want to think about. First of all, how your customers are used to seeing your name appear on their waste transfer notes. So the name you supply at registration is going to be visible to other users of edoc. For example, when you're adding businesses in a waste transfer note, edoc will suggest other registered people to you as you start to type. If you have an organisation with several business divisions and your customers are used to dealing maybe with the divisional name of the business, registering at the top level organisation may not be right for you because that wouldn't be visible to users. You might hold registrations and permits. So for registration, if your business holds different levels of registration in different parts of the business, it might be appropriate to register each business independently to match those different waste registrations or permits. Also, it depends on how you would like people in your organisation to view the waste transfer records. So, for example, if you had a user created under one registration, for example, under a business A, they won't have business or visibility of the waste transfer notes for another registration, i.e. business B. So if somebody in the organisation wants to have visibility of all your waste transfer notes at an organisational level, certainly for maybe reporting purposes, then you would have to register at the organisational level, or there is another way of doing it by giving user credentials to each business division that you register for that person. It is really entirely up to you. edoc is flexible, and there, as I said, there's no right or wrong way to register. However you register, though, you'll need something called a business administrator, and they're basically the person who registers your business. They're going to be managing and maintaining that account, which means that they'll be able to add users and specify what tasks each user can perform, and they'll be able to add sites and further locations to your business. So let's go into the test system now and actually have a look at it so that you can become sort of a little bit familiar with what it actually looks like, and we'll look at some of those things that I have talked about in terms of business administration activities. So this is our website, online.co.uk, and as I said, the test system is an exact replica and is under the edoc help and support menu. So this just explains what I've said, that you can actually try out and familiarise yourself with edoc using the test system. You will have to register for the system, test system, just like you will for the live system. But to get access to it, I have already registered just for the quickness. So I will log in terms of actually something that I've set up already. Okay, so we're successfully logged into edoc. I'll just give you a bit of a tour of the front page and just point out some things to you which obviously, if you haven't seen the system before, may not be familiar to you, and in particular some of the administrative functions. First of all, you'll notice these green banners, if you like. They are very useful little indications, and they'll tell you when you have done an action successfully. If it turns red, or if it's a red message, then there's probably a problem, and it will try and help you with the message to tell you what that problem is that you need to address. When we make changes to the system, we also add a banner and tell you what those changes are. At the moment, we've made a few sort of changes, not to functionality, but just sort of behind the scenes to improve a few things, in particular some API documentation and adding another frequently asked question. So if there were some changes, this is where you would see them. That will disappear as you move around the system. It's just letting you have a look at that the first time you log in. So for ease, sort of what we've got is these top menus across the top here, and these are the key areas. So we've got the transfer menu, which Brian will be looking at, which is where you can actually access, create, and upload your waste transfer notes from. Next, the reporting section. Again, Brian will have a quick sort of look at that, but these names of the reports we described earlier: business report, there's waste tonnage report, and the all edoc waste report. We have the frequently asked questions and also notifications. This is where a waste regulator can actually contact you through the system, just like they can ask to see your paper waste transfer notes. They can do that within the system. You will have to acknowledge their request before they get access to that information. Over on the right-hand side are the sort of business menus. There's a menu about you, the user, where you can change your password and actually set your PIN from. This business menu is really about where you can do some common tasks. In particular, things like changing those details that you might have added at registration, which would be under the Manage Business. So if you want to go back and add things like your waste carrier's license details or other things about the number of people in your business, something like that, then that is the place to actually do that. Next, we have some other roles, basically manage users, manage sites, and also interacting with edoc, which actually gives you some information about the API. So let's just take a look at the manage users and just have a quick look at that menu. With me, slow connection, obviously. Slow connection at the Environment Agency today. Okay, here we go. Right, so basically, the manage users, you'll see that I've got a number of users in my business. It just sort of tells you who is registered on my business. Obviously, the business administrator is the first person that logs in, so they will see that view that I showed you on that front page with all that information. You can give users different roles, as I said, and restrict their access to defined parts of edoc. So for the majority of roles, if we just look at my roles, you'll see that I have got business administrator, but I'm also transfer manager, business reporter, and all edoc waste reporter. But if you just want somebody to actually be able to do waste transfers and manage waste transfer notes, you just give them the transfer manager role. Or if you just want them to be able to report, then that would be just the business reporter. So it's really up to you what level of access you want people within your business to actually have. In terms of adding a user, it's very simple. You can do this in bulk or you can do it just singly. Creating a user is really as simple as defining a username for them, adding their actual name, and then confirming and adding their email address. Defining what roles you want them to have, and then pressing create and that should actually send an email then to that email that you've supplied here to that person so that they can then follow through, set their own password. It's very easy, as you can see, to add different users. Let's have a look at managing sites lastly before we'll hand over to Brian for the waste transfer note. Again, you can see these blue sort of summary sections. This is actually just telling you about what this particular area of the site is about. So as I've said, you can organise your sites within the business, and there is a video that we have for that. So again, maybe something that you want to watch later on after the end of the webinar. We've designed edoc, as I said, to be flexible to set up your business to replicate what structure you may actually have now. So you might want to organise your sites in a hierarchy that matches your business. And that's certainly something that you can do on edoc, and it could reflect maybe how you're set up in a geographical area or business or by business division. Alternatively, you might want to set your sites up in a flat structure so that they're not actually connected to each other. Again, edoc is flexible and it's really up to you. Just some things about adding sites. Obviously, only the business administrator will be able to add and manage sites, but don't forget, obviously, a business administrator will be able to add more business administrators once they have actually logged into edoc, possibly to manage, help manage your business if you've got a larger business, or manage periods of leave. You'll be able to edit and change the details that your business added at registration, but you'll also be able to add more sites. In terms of adding the sites themselves, what I want to do is maybe just show you a hierarchy, and a simple hierarchy in our frequently asked questions to see how you might actually set up a site. It's very straightforward to replicate a hierarchy on edoc itself, and it's maybe something that you want to think about before you actually register, how you want to set your business up. So in this example, what we've got is we have sort of, if you like, A is registered at the registration process, and that's the site details that you will add at that particular point. But you've also got a number of other regional sort of headquarters, if you like. In this case, we've got Site B and Site C in North and South regions itself. So setting your sites up like this means that you will be able to actually report both at the top level, so at the site sort of from the organisational level, so you'll be able to run a report which includes all these sites, so A, B, C, D and E, but you'll also be able to report on sort of regional units, so you'd be able to report on Site B with Site D and E underneath it, or just on Site E alone. So if you set your sites up in a hierarchy, it allows you that flexibility to be able to pull off information at how you want to replicate and manage your business itself. Let's go back to the site itself and show you actually how you add a site. Very simple. So what I've got here is I've added my head office and I added that at registration. So that's my top site. I'm registering my sites at an organisational level with things sort of sitting underneath it. So what I've got is a head office, and then I've got a regional division north underneath it. You can see here that the status of that regional north is not active. So what that means is within a hierarchy you can have sites which are inactive, as this one is, and this allows you basically to mirror an organisation's hierarchy more easily and be able to run reports on different sections of your business. Inactive sites therefore don't appear in real-time suggestions when you're actually creating a waste transfer node. And you can easily edit that in the edit menu, and you can actually take that on and off as you like. So let's just look at adding a site. You can do this in either a bulk way, by adding several sites at one go. There's a template that you can actually download. Again, this blue bar menu is telling you about sites, in multiple sites in one go. You can download the template, add the information that we'll look at on the web portal, exactly the same information, and then you find the place where you've saved your CSV file, possibly on your desktop, something like that, and then actually upload it to the edoc system by pressing the upload button. That should then populate the multiple sites that you have on your template itself. So let's just look at adding a new site singly, because this will show the information that is on the actual template itself. So let's decide that I'm actually just going to add another site here. So I'm going to add North Site 5. I think my postcode for North Site 5 is... You find your address, populates the address for you. Again, you'll see these little tooltips are telling you what you needed to do there, which was enter the postcode, and then obviously it will populate that through for you. In terms of the parent site, I'll leave that as no parent for the minute, and then we'll come back to that and I'll show you how you can edit that. Number of people, this is optional, so but I'm going to sort of fill that in as there's sort of 10 to 49 at my site here. What we've got there is if you need to keep records for landfill tax purposes, as it says there, and that will then keep those records for more than the required 2 years. If you don't need to do that, then you don't need to tick that. You need to add your SIC code, which is the same as my one that I added for my business. Again, I knew what the code was, so I could actually start typing it. If you don't know what that is, you could just start typing other information services into that box, and it would have made the suggestions for you. You can also add any waste exemptions or permits that you might have for the site. Again, the more information you add, the more information that edoc will be helpful and pull through to waste transfer note. I don't have any, so I'm not going to add those things. Also, you can add email addresses. They can be numerous in number, just sort of put a hard return in between, and this will actually then send an email to the person at the particular site that you want to be notified when there's a waste transfer note for that site for them either to sign or actually to change. So again, I won't actually add that. That's it. That's as simple as that in terms of the information that you have to add. Press create a site and you'll be able to see that this green message again has told me that I've added a site successfully, which is good. I can just get rid of that and it's showing me the details. So let me just go back to my view of the sites, and you can see that I've added my North Site 5. But actually, my North Site 5 fits under my regional division North Site. So let's just go in and edit that, and I will go to the parent site, which I didn't actually fill in before. So what I want to do is actually just align it to my regional North Division, because all of those sites sit under that regional North Division. So I'll change that, and then save my changes. Again, I've saved that change successfully. You can now see that edoc has aligned it so that I actually have all my sites sitting in the North region under my regional division there, which means that I'll be able to report on that secularly, or I'll be able to actually report on individually. But actually, if I had another division like Southern Division, I could add those sites and then be able to report at an organisational level. So hopefully you can see adding users and sites is actually quite simple. Very sort of, some key bits of information that you need, and you can either do that singly on the website or you can upload through the bulk portal. I'm going to hand over to Brian now, who's going to talk to you about the transfer notes section, and in particular how to fill in a waste transfer note.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Brian Marshall, and I'm the Environment and Compliance Manager for Economy. And I'm just going to move things over so that you can see my screen, which means then I can demonstrate how we can create a waste transfer note. You can see on the screen, as Victoria said, there's a whole series of quick links on the front page to take you to doing various different tasks. Alternatively, they can all be accessed through the menu at the top. But we're going to create a waste transfer note, so we'll use the quick link there, which will take us straight into it.
Have you, Brian, have you actually sort of connected over to your system? Because I'm still seeing...
Yes, it should be up on the screen.
Okay, I'm still seeing my test site and... Okay, yep, I see it.
I shall go more slowly. Right, here we can see the page for creating a new waste transfer note. And the first section to make a decision is, are we going to create a season ticket with to cover a period of time, or an annual waste transfer note, as they're sometimes known as, or a single transfer. In this particular case, we're going to change that over and just do a single transfer. The system suggests a date and a time, which is effectively where we are now. Alternatively, you can you can create that date and time relevant to the transfer and detail that you're putting in. The next step is to put the details in the waste to transfer, and in this particular case we will put in mixed construction waste. The description box allows you to type in as much or as little information as you need, effectively to allow everyone involved in the transfer to know what the waste is. Next step is to put in the EWC code. You can either do that using the drop-down menus or alternatively start typing. And I know this is a 17 code waste, and you see I get as far as 1709, and it's identified 170904, which I then select off the list. The other box you can see there, the reference ID, that's an optional box, but that allows you to create a series to effectively define a reference identification. So if you're a waste producer and you've got a number of different waste streams from your site, you can create a series of identification codes. The big advantage of that is once you've got them in, if you've created a dozen different identification codes for your dozen different wastes, you can then, when you're using the business report, you can break down by those various different identifications. You might want to define particular waste from a particular production plant or something like that, and again, it allows you to be able to break that information down. The next step is the container information. You can see there's a relatively short list of types of container, and if you happen to have a container that isn't included on that list, and I think someone's identified that we don't specifically pick out rail transport, the box at the bottom there marked other, you can select that, and then it allows you to type in your own description of the type of container. In this particular case, we're talking about a skip without compactor. It's a single container, and the volume of the container is a typical 8-yard skip, or in this particular case, 6 cubic meters. Now you can see, now I put that information in, the weight per transfer has appeared in the box in kilos, and you can also see the little box has popped up saying how edoc has calculated this weight. And if I just click on that, you can see a box opens up, and it says for that waste code, it shows you what density factor we've assumed, a compaction factor, the number of containers, the volume of the container, and the proportion of the total waste, and how it's got to that estimate of 1.9 tonnes. Obviously, that's only an estimate, and it's based on a number of densities and figures held within the system. And if you happen to know that your containers normally weigh a different figure, then you're quite at liberty to put that in. Or alternatively, once that container's been over a weighbridge further down the line, then the transferee can type the weight in for you, so you end up with a detailed bit of information. The next two sections, tracking information and waste tonnage returns, are optional sections. The tracking information effectively will allow you to go back into your waste as a waste producer and see what type of fate your waste has been taken to. So once it's been transferred and deposited further down the line, the details of the type of fate will appear in that box, so you can see whether it's gone for a recycle or for disposal, or if it's gone into a landfill. Obviously, at this point, we're just producing it, so there isn't any information to go in there. The waste tonnage returns information is designed to add in the additional information to allow edoc to assist you in creating a quarterly return to the Environment Agency. Again, you don't have to use edoc for this, but if you add the additional information in there, that means that the report will assist you in creating that information. It doesn't do the returns for you, but it does create a form that's designed to give you the information in the right format to allow you just to transfer it over into your quarterly return document. Next step, transfer all, current holder of the waste. That's me, so that's very easy. I just click on this is my business, and it populates and it asks which site I'm from. So we select the site, and you can see there that it's populated all the information. including the SIC code, identified me as the producer of the waste, and filled in all the details there. Transfer location, again, if it happened to be a remote from where I am sitting at the minute, then we could type that information in, or alternatively, we can just click on the button and copy the details in, and that puts the transfer location straight in and provides you with all of the information. The other thing to note on there, you can identify something as an internal transfer. So if, for example, you were someone who operated a waste facility, and maybe you had a single reception area, but 3 or 4 different treatment areas within your facility, you could also use this to identify internal transfers. So you could identify the material had gone from your reception area into your wood treatment plant, or from your reception area into the landfill, or from your reception area into plastics recycling, or whatever, however your facility is broken down. The next section is the transferee, the person receiving the waste. In this particular case, we've set up an example waste carrier. Selecting them from the list, you can see I just start to type their name, their details appear, I select what the details again, and all the information is populated straight in there. And again, there is scope for reference identification numbers, for identifying this particular waste movement. And obviously, the more information you put in, the more detail you'll be able to get out when it comes around to reporting. If we move down the page, you can see that they've identified that this is a registered waste carrier. You can see they also have a permit, and their registration numbers and permit numbers are also included in there. And then down the bottom, you can see we've got 2 further areas, one to cover if there's a broker involved in the transfer, and a further one for the dealer's details. And just to show you how this works, I shall put in a broker in this particular movement. You can see we have our economy details in there. And again, I've just typed in started to type in the name of the company. It's turned up on the pick list, selected it, and it populates the information in on the screen. Now I've completed all of that, the next step would be to save it. At the point at which I'm saving, there's no validation taking place, so I could partially complete it now and then come back and put a few more bits of information in later if, for instance, I wasn't sure who was going to be moving the waste, or there were some other details I needed to add in later. Then at this point, the note is just in its draft form. Only you can see it as the person who started to create the document, and you can go back in and out of that and edit it and change it and make sure all the details are complete. Once you're happy with all the information, the next step is to share that note with the other parties, which is the option here that says submit. The point at which you click on submit, there is an error check takes place, and it ensures that all of the details you put on there are properly completed. So if you've left a box empty and there's a bit of information you should have put on there, it'll identify that. If I click on this, you should see an example of the little red box at the top that Victoria mentioned. It says the waste transfer notice failed validation. Validation errors have occurred. So if we then scroll slowly down the page, you should be able to see one of the boxes is highlighted in red, all the way down at the bottom, and it's asking for a broker contact name. So I shall put something in there, and then resubmit, and hopefully this time, if everything's working properly, we've now successfully saved the waste transfer note. Now at this point, all of the parties involved on that note will have received an email to identify the fact that the note is there and is ready for signature. So in this particular case, there's my details, and then the person receiving the waste will have received an email to say that the document is there up ready for signature, and also the broker details I've put in down the bottom there. They will also get an email about the document. The other thing I wanted to mention at this point in time, You don't have to laboriously type in every waste transfer note. You can also you can also bulk upload them. And if I go into the bulk upload option, that then brings the upload multiple waste transfer notes screen up. You can see there at the top there's the option to download the CSV template. This effectively gives you something you can load into a program like Excel, type in all of your details, maybe anything up to a couple of hundred movements, I think, can go into that document, and then you upload it. Now, I've already created one, so we'll choose the file and go to my desktop, find the details. Now, this particular first one I've got, I know there is an error in there, so I can show you what happens if you miss a bit of information out. So you can see the details are in the box there, and I click on the upload, and it takes it through the same validation process that happens when you try to share a waste transfer note. And you can see there that my finger has obviously slipped, and I've put in an invalid EWC code on 10 of the lines in that particular document. The thing to remember here is, if there are validation errors, the box informs you where those validation errors are. What it doesn't do is import anything at that point. So if we now go back out and re-choose a file without errors in, and upload that, you can now see on the screen I've uploaded 10 waste transfer notes. They've all now been moved to the shared status because the validation's been undertaken as they've been uploaded, and you can see them there listed on the screen. The next stage with the waste transfer note will be to sign it. So if we open the one at the top just to show you how that works. When you get down to the transferor, that's me. I've got details here that says sign as transferor, so I shall click on that. You have 4 options there. You can either sign with the username and PIN, which I'm going to demonstrate in a second. You can sign using a signature image, which allows you to upload an image of a signature onto the waste transfer note. You can upload the image of an entire waste transfer note if this happens to be something you've created on paper and you want to link into this system. Or alternatively, if you're dealing with this on a much larger basis and you've got the signature on a piece of paper locally, you can confirm the signature is retained locally. You don't have to have to upload it, although that does mean if at some point in the future a regulator wants to see that, they can see that the signature is retained locally, and they would then approach you for copies of the documentation. But preferred option, I would say, is to sign with your user and PIN. You can see, as I've clicked on that, it's come up with the boxes to put the details in. You can also see that at this point I'm confirming that I've fulfilled my duty of care as regards the waste hierarchy. That's the waste hierarchy bit of the waste transfer note completed. So I click on sign. You can now see, if I go down to the box there, you can see I've signed it and I've agreed that the waste hierarchy should be applied. All of this information, as the note is created, is retained in a revision log. So you can see that I've uploaded it, shared it, and then the change of status has gone from not signed to signed. So as the thing progresses, there's nothing to stop you going back in and changing information in there if there's something materially inaccurate or there was a misunderstanding over the EWC code. Changes can be made at any time. However, whenever those changes are made, they're clearly recorded in the revision list, so you can see who did them and when they did them, and see all the details of those changes. The other thing I wanted to show you, the next stage, once a note's been signed, and I've got an example here of a note that has already been signed by the carrier. So if we go down to the bottom, the Victoria very kindly signed that as a representative of the waste carrier that she created. If I go in here and sign this document, again, username and PIN, we click on sign, and you can now see that this waste transfer note has moved from shared to agreed, which means that all the parties involved in the waste transfer note have signed it, and that note's completed. The system will retain all of the information relating to that note for the statutory 2-year period. If it's been identified that this relates to landfill tax, then the note will be shared for 5 years, and then after that time period the document is archived, and the archive effectively keeps all of that information with the exception of images of signatures and notes to reduce the amount of storage for an archived note. So they all stay there. The other thing to mention, we are in the test system at the moment. When you're in the test system, you can create as many documents as you like. You can try all sorts of things to make sure it does what you want to do. It's an ideal sandbox to be able to test out these things with. Every so often we will have to clear the test environment out because obviously it is just a temporary area, and once the storage area starts to get a bit full, we will be periodically clearing it out. So at some point, don't be too surprised if everything disappears. If you've got live information, you should be putting that into the live system, which looks has identical functionality from this system, but obviously it doesn't have the test watermark running through in the background. The next thing I wanted to show you is a little bit about how the reports work. Again, from the top, we will pick up create a business report. You can see there's 2 areas to the report. You identify the level of information you want to provide. Initially for what period. So if we'll leave for a full year for region, but we'll break the waste down by EWC code, and then you can apply the next section, which effectively gives you a number of filters. So you can filter to a business name, a site name, a business reference identification, EWC codes, SIC codes, types of transfer. So you can see there's a fair amount of detail there that allows you to pick out the information you want. Execute that, and you can see that that's in our little example environment. We've generated waste transfer notes for 3 different EWC codes, giving you where it says predicted weights. Those are the weights associated with the containers. Where we're using the estimated details, where somebody's gone back in again and recorded that detail, you can see that is shown in the recorded weight column. So you can immediately see the difference between what was estimated and what was actually recorded. And the 2 columns at the end there, the yellow and the green, give you a quick visual indicator as to how much of that information has predicted or recorded weight. Very useful, I would suggest, if you've got an annual waste transfer note and you've got somebody going back in again periodically putting weights in against that note, you can see how the actual amount of weight you're moving corresponds to the amount you estimated when you created that waste transfer note in the first place. The final thing I was going to show you was the edoc all waste report, and again you can select areas and time periods. And I should just open it up to include shared notes so we can see a reasonable number. And that gives you an indication of the amount of material we've currently got sitting in the test system. You can see obviously there's a lot of people with predicted weights, but very few actual bits of information. But obviously there's 679 waste transfers in there. If you started to filter it down and you reached the point where you were picking an individual postcode, which would theoretically enable you to identify that individual, then the system, the anonymization on the system effectively doesn't allow you to see that. So there is a layer of confidentiality to prevent third parties seeing what waste you're creating from the edoc all waste report. And that takes me through everything I was going to demonstrate. Victoria, do you want to
I will, I will just sort of come back and sort of finish off. Thanks very much for that, Brian. We only have sort of one question, which is about sort of reporting, but I will pick that up and respond to the questioner via email after the webinar, because we're nearly out of time. I wanted to say thank you for all attending, and I hope that's sort of given you a flavour of what edoc is and what it can actually do. The aim of the webinar was really to get you thinking about how you'd be able to use edoc in your business and really give you that sort of confidence to register and use it. Do make use of the test system. You'll know that you're in the test system there because you can see the watermark, and it is an exact replica of the live system, and it's really an excellent way to help familiarise yourself and actually try things out, as Brian said. Also, if you're going down the route of the API as well, it's an ideal sandpit to be able to test any of that information. As I said right at the beginning, our approach was to develop something that you could, our approach was to make it flexible as possible so that businesses could achieve what they needed to in terms of records and information. So it is doing the same job as the paper-based system, but as you can see, it is different because you're doing it online, so it doesn't exactly maybe replicate how you do things now. So realistically, businesses are actually going to want to have a look at what they do now and what the system can offer them to see if they need to adapt any of their processes to make the best use of the edoc system. Obviously, that level of change is something that the business needs to consider, and naturally will be a factor in terms of whether they use edoc and how far they use it. At the moment, the system obviously isn't mandatory, but I think in terms of the benefits it can offer you, certainly in terms of storage of that information, and then being able to get that information out and be able to actually use that for management purposes, really will, I hope, sort of, encourage businesses to see that there are real benefits to actually using edoc itself, and hopefully make it appeal to, majority of businesses over time. So that was my last, that was really just the final words that I wanted to say, and we're out of time. So again, thanks very much, everybody, and that's the end of this edoc webinar.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes your conference call for today. You may now disconnect. Thank you for joining. Have a very good day.